Hollywood. It's Paranormal Tonight. I'm Mark Summers. And now, here's your host, Dan Harari.
And here I am, Dan Harari. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Live from Hollywood. It's Paranormal Tonight, broadcasting live in color from beautiful downtown Beverly Hills. Not Hollywood, but pretty close. I'm just getting over a couple of weeks of COVID that I caught at the Conscious Life Expo a few weeks ago.
12,000. I'm coming in, Dan, to thank you for surviving it. I'm glad you're back. Thank you so much. I'm so happy you're okay.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. It was a rough 2 weeks, man. I was at Conscious Life Expo a few weeks ago, and I was on a panel, UFO panel, with the following people. Me and the following people were on the same panel. Paul Hynek, Linda Moulton Howe, Danny Sheehan, Steve Bassett, and Thomas Winterton from Skinwalker Ranch, and me. And it was so much fun to be on that panel. I was the only one up there with a sense of humor. I made all kinds of jokes and I made people laugh. But I've only been immersed in this field really for the last 3 years. And for me to be on the same stage with Linda Moulton Howe and Danny Sheehan and Steve Bassett, man, that was really a lot of fun. But then I got COVID and I got sick. So anyway, I feel better now. We have a very special lady tonight, a very special guest, a dear friend. And you all know and love her, as do I and Race, my producer. So here we go. Margie K is the president and owner of the KUNX Digital Broadcasting Network and also UNX Media Publishing. She's also the host of the UNX News TV show, which airs weekly on YouTube. Based in Kansas City, Missouri, Margie is a national speaker, a documentary filmmaker, and a licensed private investigator. She serves as Assistant State Director for Missouri MUFON and is a 40-year veteran UFO investigator. That's something to talk about. She's completed over 570 UFO investigations for MUFON and over 1,700 paranormal and UFO investigations on her own. Margie has written over 250 articles for magazines and websites, including the MUFON Journal, UNX News Magazine, Examiner.com, the UNX blog, and others, and she's spoken at over 200 conferences and meetings around the country. In addition, Margie has written 15 books, hosted radio shows since 2003, and she's interviewed dozens of leading paranormal and UFO researchers, major people like Kathleen Marden, Stanton Friedman, Edgar Mitchell, Craig Campobasso, many, many more. She's appeared on numerous radio shows, Coast to Coast AM with Cheryl Jones, and with George Norrie, Heidi Hollis's show, Jimmy Church's show, many others. She's appeared in the TV pilot called Strange, which I never saw. I'd like to see that. On the TV show Hangar One, on CNN News, and on Ben Hanson's really great show, UFO Witness TV series, which I enjoyed tremendously. Margie is an accomplished remote viewer and trainer, and she's also a founding member of the group I created last year with Steve Bassett, called the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. And with that, Race, let's welcome in the one and the only. And there she is, Margie K. Hello, Margie K. How are you?
I'm great. Hi, Dan. Good to see you.
Thank you. You too. It's nice to see you too. Okay, so let's just jump in. I know a good amount about you, but a lot of things I don't know about you. So let's just jump right into the pool here. I always like to ask my guests, where did you grow up? What did your parents do? And what were some of your interests as a child?
Well, I grew up mostly in Kansas City, a little bit in Springfield, Missouri, and then back to Kansas City. My father was a salesman for Encyclopedia Britannica, and he also taught 7 languages at SMS University in Springfield.
Wow.
He was fluent in all 7. My mother was a quote housewife with a bachelor's degree in merchandising. And then after my parents got divorced, she went to work for a radio station. And I got involved in radio when I was 17 years old in high school. So I started doing DJ work in high school. That's how I got interested in radio. They were both also actors. And so I got involved in acting as well. My father was just an unbelievable character actor. He was even on a couple of TV shows.
Oh.
So Yeah, I grew up in that environment. My dad had a very, very high IQ, so he was always testing us and teaching us chess at a very young age, things like that.
That's very cool. Where were your parents from? Were they from Europe?
No, they were both from Kansas City. They were both born
Yeah.
in Kansas City. My mother was Italian. My father Scots Irish.
Okay, your father was fluent in 7 languages. That might be some kind of world record, Margie. I never heard of that before. That's incredible. Like when he yelled at you, like did he curse you in foreign
Oh,
languages?
sometimes, yeah, he would bring the Russian out sometimes or the German. Yeah.
And you're like, thank God I don't understand what he's saying, but I know it's bad, right?
Hmm.
So when did you first become interested in the paranormal? How did
Well,
that
that
start?
was one fateful evening when I was 10 or 11 years old. A a head appeared at the foot of my bed. It was all misty and
Wow.
transparent, but it was definitely a head of a man, and he was talking, but I couldn't hear anything come out of it. And my sister's bed was across the room, and I said, "Alice, do you see that?" And she looked over. She started screaming. I wasn't screaming at that point, but then I started after she did. So my dad and my brother came running into the room. They flipped the light on, and as soon as they did that, it disappeared. So there was no more apparition. And my dad brought, he said, "What's going on?" I said, "Well, there's a man at the foot of my bed, and he was talking." And he said, "Do you remember what he looked like?" I go, "Yeah." So he brought me a photo book, and he had me look through the photo album, and I picked one of them out. It was my grandfather, his father, who had
Wow.
died years before I was born. So that was my first introduction to paranormal.
So it was just your grandfather's head? Just
Yeah,
a head.
just
Was
the
it
head.
was it like as though it were 6 feet tall?
It was. Yeah, it was floating about 6 feet above the floor.
And
Mhm.
he passed before you were born.
Yeah.
You-
Yeah, several years.
That's amazing. And you instinctively you had a feeling that you were going to figure, or your father had a feeling you were going to find him in a picture book.
Yeah, my dad was very intuitive, although he would say he wasn't, but he was. And he was curious. He wanted to know if it was somebody who was related. And it turned out, of course, at that time, I didn't really communicate with the dead until years later. But after I developed that skill, since then I have been in contact with my grandfather and the rest of the family members.
Wow. So in this apparition, he was speaking to you. Was his mouth was moving?
His
Did you
mouth
hear?
was moving. I
Did you
couldn't
hear?
hear.
You couldn't hear.
No, couldn't hear a thing. And then later on, some weird things happened in this house that we wrote a book about in Springfield, where there were these heads in the walls, and they were talking as well. And it was the same thing. I couldn't hear anything, but I could even
Wow.
read their lips sometimes.
Wow. That house should be in an episode of The Twilight Zone or something.
Oh, that house. Oh my gosh, it should be a movie. In fact,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about doing a documentary about it.
Now you're obviously very attuned to the other side. Are your sister and brother, are they attuned as well?
They're intuitive. They're a little bit psychic, but nobody in the family is anywhere near what I can do.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, we knew by the time I was 2.5 that I was seeing things that other people weren't.
Wouldn't you love to know what your grandfather was trying to tell you? Like, Wouldn't you like, hey, Margie, I'm your grandfather. We're going to be friends, for a long time to come. It would have been great to know what he was saying to you that night.
Well, he did tell me later what he was saying. And it was a message for my dad.
It was for your dad. And
Yeah.
did you relay it to your father?
Oh, I did. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Boy, you have some stories, my friend. All right. Now I know you've investigated 8 million UFO events. Have you seen UFOs? I'm sure you have. And if so, give me a couple of your most profound experiences.
Well, the first one, there have been many. First one, I was 17 years old. I was driving the car. My mother was the passenger. My brother and sister were in the back seat. We were driving from Kansas City to Mexico.
Okay.
So as we're driving through Oklahoma, and of course, back then, the speeds were a lot higher than they are now. And so my mom said, floor it. So I'm going pretty fast. My brother says, what is that thing over there? So we all look to our right, and we're in the middle of nowhere, just fields and farms. And here is this cylindrical, silver, shiny object, huge, absolutely huge, the size of 3 747s, the length.
Wow. Okay.
And it was pacing us. So I slowed the car down to like 50, and it slowed down. And I'd speed up again to 80, and it would pace us for miles. And the thing is, that was in the afternoon. And the next thing we knew, it was dark, and we were stopped at a motel, and we were going into the motel. And we had no idea what had happened in previous 4 hours.
So you had missing time.
We had missing time, but at the time,
wow,
we didn't think anything about it. We didn't discuss it. We just went to sleep, and then we got up very late the next morning and headed on further down the road.
So this is you, your mom, your brother. Who else was in the car?
My sister.
4 of you.
The 4 of us all saw it. We all remember it, but we do not know what happened from the afternoon to the evening.
Since that happened, and that was a while ago, have you been hypnotized to recall that?
Yeah, I've been regressed and hypnotized, and I have not been able to see what happened during that particular incident, but I have been able to see others. So I've had quite a few fantastic events happen.
That's a great story. All right, so let's do a story when you had an event, you have missing time, and you recovered that memory. Let's talk about that.
Okay, this is a big one. I was scheduled to speak at the Piedmont UFO Festival in 2013. I went with another investigator who was an experienced driver and navigator. Let's put it like that. I'm driving my car, he's navigating. And we got lost on the way down. There are major highways in Missouri. We knew where we were going. We had GPS. We had maps. We had backup GPS on our phones. Still ended up on the opposite side of the state going south, right next to the Mississippi River to Piedmont instead of a shorter way. So it should have been a 6-hour drive. It was 10 hours by the time we got there. But in between time, this really strange thing happened. We stopped to get some dinner and walked into this diner that was in the middle of nowhere, and everything looked like it was from the 1950s. And the people were dressed like 1950s.
And this wasn't like a themed 50s cafe.
No. And it was really old. And we came in with our black leather jackets, and we were both wearing all black,
Yeah, and you have cell phones in your hands, right? You have cell phones.
Of course,
and there's probably no cell phones in there.
It was just bizarre. The whole place just stopped and stared at us. It was like something out of a movie.
Wow.
And I looked at my partner and I said, "Oh, we don't need to be here. This feels off." So we left and got back on the road. We're driving south. Pretty soon, I feel this energy to my left that something's watching us. So I'm driving, but I turned out and looked, and this is over the Mississippi River. I see these 3 stars in a triangle shape, and I thought, I don't think that's supposed to be there. So I told my partner, and he looked, and so I said, "Why don't you just keep an eye on that?" So I'm driving. Pretty soon he says, "Uh-oh." I said, "What do you mean, uh-oh?" He goes, "Well, those 3 stars just moved behind us. They're following us now behind the vehicle." And he opened the sunroof on the car. So he's looking through that. And then he says, "Oh no, they're shooting stars." And I said, "What do you mean they're shooting stars?" He goes, "Well, they're really not. There's 2 objects up there and they're shooting at each other."
Wow.
I'm like, "Oh no." So I'm panicked. I know what's going to happen. I know we're going to be abducted. And I just start driving as fast as I can on this very dark road. There's not another car in sight for miles and miles, no cars. And so we finally get to our destination 10:30 at night. This poor lady was putting us up, putting another investigator up. He was already asleep. We go to our rooms, but before we go to our rooms, I look down the hall and I see someone looking in the window of the house in the very end of the hall in the bathroom. And I said, do you have a neighbor or somebody that's looking in the window back there? She goes, it's 2 stories in the backyard. There's no way somebody could be standing there looking in the window. And then I realized what I just seen was a gray ET. So I'm like, oh, I'm never going to get any sleep. But we went to sleep. We did the conference. Some very strange things happened at the conference. Right at the time when I was supposed to speak on the schedule,
Right.
they actually moved me to be keynote speaker at 5 o'clock. But originally I was scheduled for 3. Exactly at 3 o'clock, all the lights in the whole town went out. Every electrical thing in the town stopped. And they were freaking out. They finally got to get back going by 5 o'clock by the time it was time for me to talk. So needless to say, that and some other things that happened prompted them to never want me to come back again. Although after that whole group of people was gone, we did do it a couple of years ago and last year, 2 years in a row. But anyway, so the last night we're there, it starts raining cats and dogs. So I can't drive home.
Okay.
And our host says, you can't drive in this. You're going to have to spend the night again. And all of a sudden I had this really bad feeling. I did not want to stay, but I also knew it wouldn't be good to drive in that. So I said, okay, we're going to stay. So we go to our respective rooms. I lay down in the bed. I hear this crack, like a big piece of glass has cracked over my head. And I knew what was happening. I was being abducted, but I went right to sleep.
Really?
So normally I would jump out of bed, all right? So something put me to sleep.
You think you were so scared that your body just shut itself down?
No. I don't get that scared anymore. I've been through so much. I'm used to it. No, I would normally jump up and see what was going on. So we get up in the morning, leave, get on the road. The investigator was with me, said, stop the car. I need to show you something. So we get out of the car. He pulls his pant leg up. His ankle has got this quarter-sized hole in it down to the bone almost. It was a god-awful burn.
Wow.
Or an incision of some type, just circular with a little notch in it. So he's navigating again. Gets us lost on some side roads, going into gravel roads. And I knew that if we turned the next corner, something bad was going to happen. We probably weren't going to make it. I stopped the car, back up into a driveway and go the other way. And he says, what are you doing? It was like something had control over him. And I said, I'm going to find our way back. So I just remote viewed where to go and got us back home. So I knew some things had happened. So I did have 2 regressions about that incident. And I found out that on the way down, a craft landed in the middle of the road. Some beings came out. They were very tall, wearing white robes. 2 of them went over to the investigator's side on the passenger side, got him out of the car, and he was fighting them.
Okay.
One came over to me, and I recognized him. And I got out of the car and went with him into the craft. He sat me down in a chair, and they were doing some readings on me. There was another entity being that was a humanoid sitting at a console that was actually running the tests on me while I sat in this chair, and everything was going through the arms of the chair and all that, whatever information they were trying to get.
But he looked familiar. Was he a Pleiadian? Did he look like a human?
He looked humanoid, except that he had a robe on to cover because he was illuminated. His skin was bright.
Wow.
And if he didn't wear the robe to cover everything, it would be too blinding to look at.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very, very high energy, high consciousness being. is the feeling that I got. And then a screen came down from this chair in front of me and showed me some things that were going to happen in the future, and then went back up. That was not a bad situation at all. Those were the good guys. But the second abduction was not. They were reptilians, grays, hybrids, and U.S. military on the craft. So I see myself lying on this table. 3 gray ETs are coming at me with all kinds of instruments to do stuff.
Now, when is this?
This is the final night where I heard the crack of the glass. Okay.
Okay. So the first story that you just told was on your way to this to the venue, and this is your last night there. And that's when your friend got a hole in his ankle.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm lying on the table and I hear him scream from down the hall.
Oh my God.
So I want to know what's going on. So I left my astral body out, went down the hall, and I saw him on the table, 2 military men in uniforms and extraterrestrials. Then I looked across the hall and I saw that was their command center for this giant ship. I mean, it was huge. It was probably 300 feet, 400 feet wide. And so then I pulled myself back to the table where I was, and I looked at this being it was like a hybrid, probably half reptilian, half human. I'm not sure. And I knew he was in charge of the situation. And I said, and I didn't know I could do this, but I'd said, you let us go now, or I'm going to crash this ship.
Wow.
And he looked at me. He was reading me to see if I could do it. And he turned to these other entities and he said, let them go. So what happened? They did let us go. They put us back, but they didn't have time to fix my partner up. And that's why he still had a hole in his ankle.
Did you have any physical marks on you?
Yeah. 3 puncture marks on my left thigh that are calf that have been there since and haven't gone away.
Wow. You have some stories. I can't even breathe from your stories.
I can't breathe reliving it because it's real.
My breath.
It happens.
And
get this, Dan. I'm watching a documentary film later, and the lady's talking about how she hears a thick piece of glass breaking before she was abducted, and then she has a hole in her leg or something with a circle and a notch in it the size of a quarter.
Like your friend.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. All right. So you mentioned in that torturous experience that you remote viewed. When did you begin remote viewing? And explain to someone what remote viewing is all about. I know you're an expert.
Well, I really started at a young age. We called it being psychic then, and I didn't have much control over it. By the time I was 22, I did have control over it, and I started doing private readings for people using, these methods, and I was pretty good. But in 1985, I was at a massage therapist's house in Seattle where I lived for a while. And we're getting ready to leave. I have my brother, my 2 young daughters with me. And we're getting ready to leave, putting our coats on. And all of a sudden, the massage therapist starts talking in a different voice and different mannerisms. And he said, would you like to try a light experiment? And I said, sure, because by then my psychic sense had kicked in. I knew something was up and it was going to be good. So he had me look at a green light and then a red light and back and forth. And by the way, I've since heard of other people that had this happen. And at that time, I did not know what this was. So I did that. And then he said, now what do you see? And I looked up at him. I just saw his skeleton standing there. I'm trying to process, why do I only see his skeleton? When a head appears on the wall, has a helmet on, comes down to a point, down the sides, covers his hair. It's a man. He says, I am Thor, and now you have X-ray vision. We're going to be working together.
And your name is Superman from Krypton. How old were you at this time?
Well, let's
In your
see.
tw-
That was
your 20s?
1985. So I was, what, 27?
In your 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And you had X-ray vision.
Well, which turned out later to be remote viewing, because I would eventually come to know that the next time I did a reading on someone, I could now see inside their body, see their organs, see inside their blood at a microscopic level, find where there are problems or no problems, or, sometimes some weird things are going on inside bodies. And then I would discover that it also applied to machinery and vehicles, and helping my husband out when he's getting ready to drill into a fireplace and wants to miss a gas line. It just developed from there, and I've kept practicing it on a daily basis for many, many years, and now I'm probably one of the best remote viewers in the world.
I know that. Do we have to take a break, or can we just keep going? This is so cool.
We could take a break.
I mean, it's up to you. It's your network. Do we need to take a break?
I don't care. Whatever
do we need to do?
No, let's.
Raise?
What do you think, Ray?
It's break time.
Okay,
break time. We'll come right back with the one and only Margie K in 1 minute.
Are you thinking about purchasing a wood-fired heating or cooking appliance but don't know where to start? The new book, Wood-Fired Heating and Cooking, will guide you through the process and make the decision much easier. Find out about wood stoves, wood-burning fireplace inserts, masonry heaters, cook stoves, brick ovens, and more. Learn about operation and maintenance, buying and storing wood, even how to make your own charcoal. A bonus section includes delicious recipes for cooking in a wood-burning oven, grill, tandoori oven, or smoker. The wise homeowner, prepper, or homesteader will have the ability to heat their home with wood when the power goes out, or to save money on increasing gas bills. Wood-Fired Heating and Cooking is available at Amazon. Visit www.woodfiredpub.com for more information. That's woodfiredpub.com.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie K and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to research a haunted house can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com.
Tickets are now on sale for Rebels of Disclosure 2025, May 12th through the 15th in Grafton, Illinois at the beautiful Pierre Marquette Lodge and Conference Center. This will be a 4-day event with 12 speakers covering topics such as ET contact, experiencer testimonies, lost history, secret space programs, time travel, Illuminati, parallel realities, and so much more. Visit journeytotruth.online for more details.
And we're back with Margie K. There she is. Margie, let's jump ahead into your great ghost stories about famous 1930s movie star Ginger Rogers. I know you have quite a few stories about her. And Race, my brother, can we show a couple of pictures of the incredibly beautiful Ginger Rogers? She and Fred Astaire were very, very famous in the 30s and 40s. And Margie has ghost stories about, there she is, Ginger Rogers. So Margie, take it away.
Sure. In 2016, my husband and I have a real estate investment company, and I told my daughter, who is our finance manager, that we were getting ready to buy another house. So we were looking for another house. I needed to tell her that. She comes down 10 minutes later and says, "Mom, you have to buy this house." I said, "What house?" She says, "The house where Ginger Rogers was born in Independence, Missouri is up for sale." I said, "Okay." So I made an appointment and went over the next day. And my husband was out of town at the time. Usually we make decisions like this together, but I didn't want anybody else to grab it. So I made him an offer, and I put down a retainer, and we purchased the house. My husband got back in town, and I said, "By the way, honey, we just bought a house." He says, "What? You did what?" I said, "Well, it's
I'm sure he loved hearing that.
Well, I told him what it was. He goes, "Oh, okay, that's a good buy." Okay. So, but we didn't know what we were in for, and I was not thinking about anything paranormal at the time. But after we got into it, he started doing renovations. He started saying, some weird things were happening. Could you come investigate the house to see what's going on? His tools would quit working. They would get unplugged.
You owned it at this point. You owned it.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Race, can we see the image of the house, please? The front of that house.
And this is after it was restored.
That's beautiful. Looks beautiful.
It's beautiful now. It even has a later picture with a nicer roof on it, like a brown roof that went better with it. It was in really, really bad shape, falling apart. Floors falling apart. It took a year to restore it. Is how much it took. But if you see those front steps there on the left,
yes,
there's an interesting story about that. There was a 1941 article that Ginger Rogers came back to visit 1941. She sat on the left side of the steps, and there was a picture in Life magazine of her on those steps.
Okay.
Well, we did the renovations. While it was empty, I was standing in the room. See that window on the right? That's the room where she was born.
Okay.
I was standing in that room trying to figure out how I was going to set that room up, when all of a sudden this fog started just kind of forming a shape. And it was finally a woman in a long dress. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm looking at Ginger Rogers.
Amazing.
And so she was there. And actually, let me back up a little bit. Before I actually purchased the house, I was standing there talking to my daughter in my office. And I said, we were trying to decide whether I should buy it. And all of a sudden, these pennies started appearing from nowhere, like they were falling down from the ceiling around the office. One of them even fell on my shoe, and one right next to my daughter's shoe. And we looked at each other and said, "Pennies from heaven."
Was that one of her films?
Yes, it was. It was a song that she sang.
Is this the famous picture that you said of her on the stairs?
Yes, it is. 1941.
Wow.
Life magazine.
So she was telling you, "Hey, thanks for buying my house. I'm still here."
She was. She was letting us know she wanted me to buy the house. We fixed it up. And then, things were happening. A lady stopped by, or she actually called me, and she says, "I'm a paranormal investigator, and I was just driving home like 3:00 in the morning from an investigation. Something told me to stop by the Ginger Rogers house." So she pulls in front. She sees Ginger sitting on the steps. She didn't know about the 1941 article.
Okay.
She didn't know about that. I said, "Oh, I've seen her there too, and so have other people." So I knew she was legit, right? Because she could see what I saw. So I invited her to come in and do a co-investigation with me.
Okay.
While there's nothing in the house yet, we had to bring our folding chairs, and we did a full-on investigation where all sorts of weird things happened, including through the spirit box. We heard Ginger Rogers' voice answering us. We heard Layla Rogers' voice answering us.
Her mother.
Right. And what they both sound like, because I had heard their voices.
Wow.
They were talking in full sentences. And also communicating with the flashlight, turning it off and on, answering yes and no questions, also making the REM pod go off like crazy. So both of them were there. Both of them were attached to the house. I do know that Ginger went back in 1941. She also went back in 1964 when President Harry Truman declared Ginger Rogers Day in Independence on her birthday, July 16th.
Okay.
And they had a huge celebration at that time. So they were there. They were attached to the house, and it just made sense that they were still with it. So we had several events happen. I even conducted investigations on the site at night after we turned it into a museum, and then it would be open during the day, and then at night we did investigations, a couple times a month. So I would guide the investigation. And one evening, there were about maybe 12 people sitting around in the living room. Outside the room where Ginger was born, we had a little child's rocking chair there, and I put a doll in that rocking chair.
Okay.
Whenever anybody went by that chair, and I wouldn't tell them anything ahead of time about where to look for stuff, they would just go through the house with their EMF meters and their equipment. Every time they walked by that chair, they would get freaked out by the doll in the chair, and the EMF meters would spike. So it was my thought that Ginger Rogers' child self had inhabited that space and was sitting in the chair. And I just felt it. I hadn't seen it until then. And then we're sitting there, and all of a sudden we see a 4-year-old girl stand up from the chair and walk towards us into the living room.
Like a solid apparition? Solid?
Full body apparition of this child walk forward.
Wow.
It was, they saw it. And then the REM pod, I put it on the chair, and it just went insane, and it started doing like Morse code. And it went off for 30 minutes. I had to finally turn the thing off.
Wow.
Because in any paranormal investigation, besides a big UFO investigation in St. Louis, the REM pod had not done that. So we knew there was a lot of activity going on there. There was also the voice of a man that came through, and some weird things happened with him. But I'll stick with Ginger Rogers. Anyway, during COVID, we were forced to shut the museum down. We had no income coming in. We had no income coming in from my chimney business, contracting company.
Okay.
We couldn't go, so I had no choice. I had to sell that house. So I did.
Did you ever have TV shows come in and record episodes in that house?
No.
Paranormal shows?
Nope. I would have if we'd had more time there, but it was 2018 when we opened. In 2019, we were shut down.
Yeah, right.
So in 2020, we sold the house.
Okay.
Well, fortunately, it sold to a lady who was a big Ginger Rogers fan, and then she sold it again to a cousin of Ginger Rogers.
Okay.
So, I feel good about that. But what I wasn't expecting was that Ginger Rogers was going to follow me back to my office. And every once in a while, if we're talking about her or I'm going through some of her stuff, organizing things, because I have everything that was in the museum. And I do a visiting museum presentation. That picture right there is one that she drew. She did a self-portrait. She was an artist, did amazing work.
Yeah.
Just absolutely talented lady.
Clearly.
So whenever I'm talking about her here, I will smell her perfume, which we had also smelled in the other house. So I know it was her.
Have you seen her at your home?
We have seen some foggy apparitions, not my house, my office.
Your office.
We've seen some foggy apparitions walk through, and I know it's her. We've also had pennies fallen from the ceiling again, but it's only if we're talking about her or dealing with her items. It doesn't happen any other time.
What years on the pennies? I'm sure you checked the years of the pennies.
Oh yeah, 1940.
1942.
Yes, 42 is a big year for her because that was her highest paid actress in the world year.
Wow, you had pennies from your ceiling from 1942.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's the best part. That's the best part of the whole story.
It's just incredible.
Fantastic. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Who was the man? Do you think the man was her father, or you don't know?
No, the man had a very deep voice, and he said murder and basement.
Oh yeah. You want to stay away from that.
Not digging into the basement is a dirt floor. I'm not digging that up. I didn't at the time. But what's weird about that is he felt like he was angry. During one of the investigations, I started choking. So I went into the back room to not disturb everybody. And then I came back, and my assistant, who is psychic, looked at me and she said, "Margie, why is there a rope around your neck?"
Oh my God.
There was a noose around my neck, and I was choking, and I could feel it.
You mean she saw?
She saw it.
She
saw it. And so I did some research, and I found out that, well, actually, Violet did some research. She's my researcher,
right?
And my partner with this book we just came out with.
Right.
She found out that this land used to be a plantation, and they had slaves.
Oh.
And what I saw visually was a big tree in the same location as the house, and there was a gigantic tree there. I mean, this thing had to be ancient. It might even have been the same tree. I saw a black man hanging from the tree, and they were not supposed to kill slaves. That was illegal, but there were plantations all over, and nobody was going to say anything. They wouldn't have told anyone. So that I feel like that ghost was that man.
So there could be bones underneath that house still.
There could be.
There could be. You didn't excavate it, obviously.
No. I don't want to go there.
No, you don't want to go there. Wow. Those are just fantastic. Just fantastic. All right, let's jump over back to the UFO stuff. When did you first get involved with MUFON, and what do you do with MUFON these days?
I joined MUFON in 1996. I became the section director for Kansas City around 2000, around the year 2000 or so. And then in 2007, assistant state director for Missouri. And then last November, I was appointed as the Central Region Director. And what I do is set up field investigator training meetings online, which we have monthly now. Okay. And it's open to all field investigators in MUFON. We do a monthly presentation on our Central Region MUFON channel on YouTube. And then we have 2 other field investigator meetings a month. We have a newsletter that's quite extensive and a website. centralregionmufon.org or mufoncentralregion.org is what it is.
Do you go out on live investigation still?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That must be pretty cool. I've never done that. It must be pretty fun.
Oh yeah, it's fun. And especially when you get evidence and you get irrefutable evidence. Things happen to vegetation that you can get evidence for, video evidence, photographs, things that happen to people. You know, there are a few people get abducted and there's evidence left behind from that. I worked a case not too long ago near Kansas City where we got fingerprints that are non-human off of an object in a person's house.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you see all kinds of neat stuff.
Margie, we need to get Dan down here and go down to the crystal mine and do an investigation with him.
I have the chills. I'm just hearing these stories. I have the chills. Actually.
There's a lot going on at the crystal mines.
I believe you. Wow. Margie, have you ever been to the ECETI Ranch? Have you been there? ECETI?
I have not. That's a place I do want to go. I visited there in my astral body, but not my physical. But I would like to go there because I know they have they call in craft, and I do a lot of that too. I do CE5 events, and every single one we get evidence, and they come in. The craft come in.
I spent a 3-day weekend at 4th of July 2008 with a girlfriend at ECETI Ranch. They didn't call it CE5 in those days, but that's what it was. That's what it was. It's James Gilliland, this guy. He's like a cleric. He owns the property, the base of Mount Adams in Washington State. And during the afternoons, they had lectures and panels and seminars under a big white tent. And then they built a campfire, and we sang and danced around a campfire with guitars and tambourines. And then we skywashed for many, many hours. There's probably 200 people. So that happened Friday and Saturday, nothing. And then Sunday, the last day, they had panels, seminars, the fire. We're looking up in the sky a couple hours, nothing. And you know this, your neck hurts after a while, right? Your neck
Oh yeah.
gets a cramp, right? So
Dan, I wonder how many hippies have been doing that, like out at Joshua Tree. You know, first, acid, mushrooms, weed.
That's it.
And
my friend Michelle Phillips. That's when she saw her UFO at Joshua Tree, and she was tripping on acid. Yeah,
they see actual, real things that happen, but it gets written off because of the drug.
Because they're tripping.
Yeah, but those drugs and ayahuasca tea and psilocybin, they open the mind. They get the blocks out of the way, so you are really seeing real things.
That's what I'm hearing. And Paul Hynek loves DMT. He communicates with interdimensional beings through DMT. Anyway, so the last night, the Sunday night at ECETI, I'm looking up at the sky, hour and a half, nothing's happening. I pull out my car keys. I go to my girlfriend, Barbara, if we leave right now, we can beat all these other cars, beat the traffic. And as soon as that happened, Margie, a huge black craft just came over our heads, huge, blocked out the sky, and hovered above our heads. And I said out loud, I said, what the hell is that thing? I thought it was a joke. I thought someone had like a little remote control toy and they were trying to fool. I really did. I thought we were being punked. I really did. And it stopped. And then this glass bulb lit up underneath, this beautiful glass bulb, bright emerald green light. It lit up like bzzz, and then it shone down on all of us like light, bathing us in this beautiful emerald green light. And I looked up, I started crying, and I'm hearing in my heart, we love you. We're here. We're sorry we're late. Everything's cool. We love human beings. Be kind to planet Earth. We'll see you another time. I'm feeling, and I still feel them in my heart. This is in 2008. And then the light stopped. The craft just slowly moved away, and then bang, zoom, and it vanished. So if that wasn't a Chinese weather balloon. That was not the military. I don't think. I think that was them.
No, that was them.
That was them.
Not with that telepathic message you got.
It was wonderful. I still feel it. I can still feel it in my heart to this day. You created the UNX network. Is it 3 years now?
Yeah, it's a little over 3 years.
Mm-hmm. So congratulations on your success. Tell us why you wanted to create your own venue and what it brings to you, what it brings to your life.
It's all Thor. Thor directed me to start the UNX magazine in 2010. And then he told me I needed to start a network in order to get the word out, and that the right shows and hosts would come.
Wow.
And to not worry about it, that it was going to happen. And it did. And everything just smoothly went into place. Of course, got the best producer in the world, Race Hobbs, and the best radio voice in the world.
Oh, yeah.
And, he and I had worked together before, so we knew each other very well. And no, but it was Thor's idea.
So the magazine came first.
Yeah, I did. Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's a great magazine. I love it. I read it every time I get it. How old is the magazine now?
Well, 2010. So
that's 15 years?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And this network is 3 years.
Yeah, started October 31st of 2021.
Right, that's right. Halloween.
Had to be on Halloween, my favorite holiday of the year.
Of course. Yeah. You have quite a few legends on your network. You have Whitley Strieber, you have Clyde Lewis, you have Peter Robbins, L.A. Marzulli. How did you befriend them over the years, and what kind of relationships would you say you have with some of these characters?
Well, each one of those people I was introduced from Race Hobbs through him.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've always, admired their work, and I just trust the process that, Race has brought most of the shows to the network. I've brought a couple, yeah, I mean, once you connect with somebody who has the same interests that you do, it's like an old friend. It's like you've known each other forever. And we're all interested in the same things, especially getting the truth out that there are other civilizations and intelligent conscious beings who are much further advanced than we are, and they're living in extra dimensions. They're in other dimensions, and they lower their vibrations so that we can experience them sometimes, like what you had your experience at ECETI.
Right.
But the whole process, the whole reason for being, my purpose for being here, according to Thor, is to help raise the consciousness of the planet. So that's my job.
Well, you're doing a great job. Does Thor still communicate with you?
Oh yeah.
How
He
does that
saved my
happen?
life a few times too.
How does that happen? Is it when you're dreaming, when you're meditating? How does that happen?
Usually when I'm meditating, it will be a telepathic communication, but occasionally if there's something urgent, he will just talk to me at any time. And then a couple of times he's appeared since. Then I also visit him and his ship. I've been on his ship 3 times.
Really?
In my astral body. So I will go into a dream state, leave my body astrally, and go to his ship, which is near Lake Mead. It's not in the lake, but it's near it.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
It's camouflaged, but you walk, if you know where to go, you walk through this bubble basically, and then you can see the ship. And so he showed me all of the floors on the ship except the bottom one. That there's 3 others. They're communal areas. The whole top is growing plants. That's where they have their gardens and their food sources. And then also their engine room, so to speak, their propulsion system. And they tried to explain it to me. I don't really understand it, but they showed how it worked and how when they go into space, there's 2 propulsion systems, one for local and then one for space. And when they get into space, they turn it on, and a byproduct of that is photons, light photons. So that's why you see these lights in the sky, because they can't turn that off, because that is their propulsion system.
Has Thor ever explained to you why you've been so honored to be selected? For this information, you're one of the chosen people.
Yeah, the reason is because of my blood vibration level and my level of consciousness, that I was ready for it. But then he gave me a boost.
Wow.
So
interesting. Well, when you mentioned how you met Race and everything came together, that's what happened with me and Stephen Bassett. I met Steve Bassett exactly 2 years ago. My book, After They Came, just had been published. I met him at UFO Con in San Francisco. We became friends, we shook hands and we were friends. And then we had lunch and we created the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. And now we talk 3-4 times a week. And, people call me the Steve Bassett Whisperer. I've become this, I don't know why. We're like the odd couple when we're together. But he's quite a character. He's a brilliant, brilliant man. No one's more passionate about disclosure, and no one on earth than Steve Bassett, man.
I agree.
He eats, breathes, and lives for disclosure. So on that topic, and you were a founding member of our group. Thank you. How do you think Hollywood historically, Margie, has handled the ET UFO phenomenon, and what do you think Hollywood could do better in the future?
Well, of course, the movies Hollywood puts out for years and years, since the 1950s, about UFOs, getting people used to the fact. And I think some of that is planned, especially the more recent ones.
Okay.
Some of it has gone a little bit overboard on the dark side, with, seriously bad things happening, like people disappearing forever, or things like that.
Getting eaten is bad.
I don't like those. I don't think it's a 100% accurate representation. I know there are some negative ETs, but they don't bother me. I've got some protection, Thor among others.
Wow.
So I don't worry about that for myself. But I know some people have had experiences, but by far my experiences have been positive. And I think, I think Hollywood could do a better job about showing some of the more positive things that have happened, like instant healing, or communication, or raise in consciousness, and, psychic abilities, things like that.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Dan, I know they're not eating this, man, because they'd look more like me if they were. You know what I mean? That's not even an option.
The goal of my group, HDA, is half of our members are UAP, ET experiencers and researchers, and the other half are Hollywood storytellers, producers, writers, directors. And the goal that I came up with is to inspire the next generation of movies, TV shows, and documentaries to be based on the real life experiences of real life people. People like you, Margie. You have probably 7 screenplays. You need to write 7 screenplays. I'm giving you homework, Margie. I mean,
actually,
some of your stories are just unbelievable.
I'm working on my book right now. I've been doing others and publishing other people's books, but now I'm doing mine, especially about Thor.
Well, I sent you. By the way, did you ever get this? I sent this to you and Ray
yes.
for Christmas. Did you guys get this book?
Yes, okay. That's a wonderful book.
Okay, thank you. I was always wondering. Yeah, those are my paranormal stories. Starting when I was 5, and I fell off a billboard sign, and a gargoyle saved my life. So,
Dan, I want to say on the air to all the listeners, especially on the radio side, Dan is holding up one of his books,
My Paranormal Life.
My Paranormal Life, that he actually sent copies to the staff here. I got to be honest with you. They're so well descripted and well written. You're going to love them. Pick it up. Take a ride with Dan for just a while, because it is well worth the read. Well, I've yet to been able to read all the rest of his books, but I look forward to it based off of that one. Dan, that's a goodie.
Thanks. Yeah, that one just came to me like 2 years ago. I'm like, I'm bored. What should I do? I sat down, and 6 months later I had it, because all those stories are true. And Margie, the first page in that book, it says, this book is dedicated to my mother, Joan, who believes not one of the stories in this book. Because my mother thinks I'm batshit crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So my mother thought, that never happened. There's
Usually,
no ghost. There's no daddy with the aliens. It's enough with the alien. My mother doesn't believe any of this stuff, Margie. Real quick, we have 2 minutes. Tell us about this book and what people can get from this book.
Well, I collaborated with Violet Wisdom, who's a professional researcher, house researcher. She's done over 50 books on that subject. And we work together. She's my executive assistant. And so I said one day, we need to write a book about a house, and I have the perfect one. So this haunted house in Springfield, most haunted house you have ever experienced, worse than any movie you've ever seen. And so we use that as the basis for this book.
This photo is a real house.
No, that photo is not a real house, but it is about. We used that house in Springfield to research as our study case. So I explained what happened in the house, and then Violet goes through a lot of things you need to know about research that no one knows about, and how to do it. So it's an excellent tool, especially for paranormal investigators.
There's one that you've investigated, though. I've seen video of it that looks a lot like that house.
That looks like the Addams family house, maybe, right?
No, that's an Amazon thing.
Oh, there you go. Here's another book that you did earlier.
Yeah, and this is Haunted Independence, Missouri. I do talk about the Ginger Rogers house in this book. There are 58 cases that I investigated in Independence. Very, very haunted place.
Wow, Margie, you are so prolific. It's really been terrific to interview you, and I'm glad we got to do this.
And I want to mention real quick, Dan, sorry to interrupt you, but for the radio people on the radio side, all of these books, Margie's books, and many other awesome publications can be found at unxmedia.com. unxmedia.com. Everybody's seen it over here on the video side, but I wanted y'all to be able to know where to find her stuff as well.
Okay. All right, you guys. Thank you guys very much. It was super fun. And if I ever come out, you'll scare the pants off of me. I'm afraid. Thanks, Margie, for doing this for me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dan. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Race, my brother. And that's it for this week live from Hollywood. It's Paranormal Tonight. Be well. Don't get COVID. And keep looking up at the skies. Take care. Bye-bye.